Well, hi everyone, it's Marcus and welcome to more Zooming in the Jungle Room. I'm heading all the way over to Melbourne today, where I'm speaking to the magician, the illusionist. He's incredible. He's an icon. He's a legend. He is Cosentino. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And thank you for having me on the show.
Well, my pleasure. First of all, we need more kindness in the world, so let's just go out and do it right. And second of all, that backdrop is amazing.
Yes, and it's not what do you call it, like green screen or CGI. It's actually it's real. It's physical, which is funny because I'm in the world of creating illusions and fantasy, but much of what I do needs to be grounded in reality for it to actually work. And so it's funny, people say to me, I might be sidetracking here, but people say, are the escapes real? Yes, real locks, real chains, really holding my breath, real insurance. So I do like if it's tangible, just like your backdrop, if it's tangible, I don't know. I just think it's better. And so yeah, this is real. Yeah.
Well, this is not real. This is nothing about this is real. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It is.
I was gonna say this is real. I know, and I know from your background, this is real.
I'm not going to lie, Costantino. I've got 653 plants in my apartment. I live in the city in Adelaide, in a very small apartment, but pretty much every square meter is filled up with plants. It's a
I
crazy.
love that.
You know what? It's all left
So
of the COVID period.
what happens when you travel?
Well, so I just got back from Bali. I just got back
Yeah,
from Bali the other day, and I was there for 12 days, and I had to get my neighbor
right.
downstairs to come up and do the
Yeah.
work for me because it's actually quite warm in Adelaide at the moment. It's actually quite hot.
Okay.
Start to enter that almost summerish kind of period. So yeah, it
Right.
comes with a lot of care, not unlike my hair.
All mine. That we do have that in common too. We have the side shaved and we have
Oh,
our long hair, and
seriously.
it's hard. I have these half dreads, half and people say, oh, do you wash them? Do you? I'm like, it's more maintenance than when I had short hair. So
Oh,
anyway.
seriously. I feel like we were separated at birth. But you know what? About all of that forever. But let's talk about your show. It's called Decennium. It's kind of known as the Greatest Hits Tour. It's coming to
Mm.
Adelaide. It's actually doing Australia. Coming to Adelaide, though, on 25th of January 2025, which is not far away, 7:30 p.m. at Her Majesty's Theatre. Whew! Tell us about Decennium.
Yes, greatest hits tour. It's decennium is Latin for decade, and we say a decade of 10 years since most people got introduced to me on Australia's Got Talent. It's been a little bit longer. We lost 2 years because of the pandemic. That we're talking about 2011. But the show's also been touring for 2 years. So what it did is usually we do the major cities first, the nationals first, and then we basically break it down. And over 2 years we do all the regionals. So we've done everywhere now from Queensland, WA at the start of this year. The show is about Decennium is about to go to New Zealand, which it does a tour of the entire country in November. It did play Singapore for 3 weeks, Malaysia, and so yeah, it's been a 2 year touring, and that's the way and it hasn't been 2 years consistently because what I like to do is I like to break up the tours to give staff so they can go off and do other gigs, other work, and also so it gives me time to write books, do television shows, whatever it might be. So we actually break it up, but it's usually a tour is a 2 year process. And yes, the greatest hits, the best of my best. It's a celebration of my life in magic over the last 10 years.
So obviously, it's not far away. Have you got
Mm.
the show in concept now? You know what you're going to be doing, so what can we expect from the show?
Yeah, of course. So there's really what I call four main pillars to the show. The first one is the magic and the illusions. And then the grand illusions, people appearing and disappearing and teleporting and levitating and really spectacle, beautiful lighting design and everything's bespoke. Like, with this particular show, not all artists do it like this, but with my show, I bring all my own lighting design. I bring all my own lights. I bring all my own sound system. We strip out the theater. We put up everything. The only thing we don't really bring is curtains, and we still bring curtains depending on what is there. We bring all our own costumes and everything's again custom made, and we bring all our own sets and backdrops and props. And so there's these elaborate spectacles, as I said, of these grand illusions. That's number one pillar. Number two pillar is the close-up slide of hand magic, things that you might have seen in my TV shows when I'm on the street, but it's now all projected onto video screen. So I invite people up on stage. They sit opposite me. I borrow objects. It might be rings. It might be coins. It might be them selecting playing cards. And it's all filmed, but multiple ways. There's a cameraman. There's a camera above. There's a camera on the side. So you get to see it from all different angles. That's number 2. Number 3 is these crazy death-defying escapes where I put myself in these, vulnerable positions. One of them, I've got my head in a Perspex box, kitchen knives, 18 kitchen knives dangling above my head, and I've got to free myself and get out of handcuffs and select keys to open padlocks. So that's number 3. And number 4 is really the combination of the dance and the humor. And so when you blend those 4 pillars, as I call them, together, you get a very unique show. No one really walks out necessarily saying, oh, I really love that illusion where he levitated, yada, yada, yada. They tend to, which is a huge compliment to me, walk out and say, oh, what a great show. It was very entertaining. And that's how I want it to be. So that's what people can expect. But I do say, expect the unexpected, because you don't really know what's around the corner. Yeah, you can't really, you don't know, like, is someone going to appear behind you? Is some, are you going to come up on stage and I read your mind, or your spouse or your partner, or so, and what are they going to tell me? Ooh, who knows? Secrets, So yeah, so expect the unexpected.
I like that. Cosentino, let's go back to the early days. What got you into, and it might have been another magician at the time, but what got you into thinking, this is the industry that I want to go down the path of?
So I started when I was 12. I was very shy, believe it or not, very introverted, very reserved, and I actually couldn't read until I was 12. So very late learner in all these specialist classes, very, very challenging. My parents were going crazy. My mum was a school principal, my father a structural engineer, both migrants that came to this country, couldn't speak English, learned to speak English, studied English, went on to higher education, really strict on education. Just giving you guys, listeners, some context. And so a little disappointing for my parents. Went to private school because my parents were big on education. They made a lot of sacrifices to send myself and my brothers to private school as a, middle-class family that, it was challenging because I could have done a lot of other things with that money. As an adult now and a married man, I kind of know like the sacrifices that my parents made. So my parents were kind of a bit disappointed. So my mum takes me to the local library, which as a kid who can't read, why would I want to be at the library? So I'm looking at books with pictures, and I stumble across a book with these old vaudevillian posters, pictures of very famous magicians like the ones behind me, which predate comic books. But to me as a kid, they look like comic books. So I'm like, wow, this is really, really cool. And they do. These posters look awesome. Yeah. And so my mother sees me with the book open and she's thinking, great, at least it's open, he's interested. Again, remember, I can't read. And so we borrowed a book, we take it home, and my mother would read these stories and adventures of these great magicians and their escapades, and how in the late early 1900s, they would travel by horse and cart or on train, and their equipment would get lost. And then, World War II hit, and then, half their, so all these adventures. It's very fascinating. And which is why I've got such a love, I guess, for history now, especially magical history. But in the back of the book, there was magic tricks. It wasn't a book intended to teach you magic. It was a book on the history, but it had tricks. So my mother would very patiently sit with me and read the description of the tricks. So that would describe what's going to happen. Like someone's going to pick a card, you're going to put it back in the deck, and then you're going to find it, whatever it might have been. And then it describes the method or the secret. And the methods were so complicated and convoluted. And so you'd have to sit there, read the description, stop, look at the little illustration and go, oh, okay, yep, you've got to put your left pinky here, right. And then you'd read the next word and then your right index finger. So it was but this process of reading the words, breaking them down and understanding what I was reading, analyzing the picture, going back, this process allowed me to really absorb the information and the words as opposed to listening to the stories. And I learned to read. And of course, this huge weight was now lifted from my shoulders because there was this shadow over me, like following me around as this kid who was, picked on and bullied because, we're talking, what are we talking now? The late 80s, early 90s, but it was horrendous. And kids would be out at lunchtime and I'd be stuck in the classroom trying to, do extra activities because trying to catch up or trying to just keep up and, anyway. And so once I learned to read, I gained this confidence, but then I gained this unique skill, which nobody at my age at 12 actually had. Remember, no YouTube, no Google, no, like no one knew about magic. Not, and the only person I could reference to later on when I'm about 13 was this huge magician in America called David Copperfield. But
Mm.
no one really knew about this magic. So my confidence increases because I can read, and then I gain this unique skill that kind of brings me out of my shell. And instead of having to talk to someone, I could perform a little trick. And then adults would be like, "Oh, how did you do it?" My father, the first trick I performed for my father, I made a coin vanish, and he said, "How did you do it?" And he's an engineer. This guy in my world was a genius, and I fooled my father. So I thought, huh, okay, I'm on to something here. So I just kept at it. Now, yes, I must have been relatively good at it, because when you're not good, and I must have found it easy, because I think I did, because everything else I was struggling with. So I was, I guess, kind of good at it, and I found it easy, because if you don't, you kind of give up on it very quickly.
Yep.
And so this all perpetuated. I got very lucky. The fact that it built my confidence. I was semi good at it. I enjoyed it. I had a passion for it. It all kind of just snowballed from there. I mean that's the origin story. That's how it all began.
Well, I mean, obviously, you said David Copperfield. Is there anyone else that you were looking at back in those days that was really inspiring you? You know, I mean, the Sigfried and Roy. I saw them in Las Vegas.
I was a
Years.
Yes, me too. I
Amazing.
saw them
The
in
White Tigers.
2000. Yes, in 2001, 2000, yeah, 2001, I saw them in Vegas. So I was a bit, it's so funny. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say David Copperfield, and then it was Sigfried and Roy with their theatricality. And so much of that over the last, I reckon, about a decade and a bit has been lost, that theatricality, which is what I love. So I grew up on David Copperfield, Sigfried and Roy, a little bit of Penn and Teller, but then I used to go back as a kid when even before Magic, and watch Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, and just I don't know what it was. I was just fascinated by the showmen, and Michael Jackson, Prince, Madonna. Notice I'm listing really theatrical people, and there was just something about their presence and about the way they performed, and so all of that kind of that cocktail helped to create who I am. And I don't know. Yeah, it was just an era of very flamboyant, theatrical people,
You said
which I
YouTube
loved.
before. Obviously, one of the biggest things on YouTube at the moment, one of the things on YouTube at the moment is people giving away the illusions. How do you feel about that? And does that make you work harder to create even better illusions that people can't work out?
Yeah, it does. It's a double-edged sword, because part of it's like, well, it's not. Look, people are giving away secrets because they know it gets views.
Yep.
So part of that is disappointing, because it's not genuine. It's for attention, really, for likes.
Yep.
So you're doing something kind of against the magician's code. Well, you are against the magician's code simply for your own gain. So there's a little bit, right? Then, okay, that's one way you could analyze it, which is kind of true if you think about it. And okay, let me give you an example. It's like running around. I hope you don't have your listeners aren't too young. It's like kind of running around and me saying, well, if I'm going to get attention for telling everyone that the Tooth Fairy and Father Christmas aren't real, then maybe I'll do it. Like, I don't know. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Is that cool to spoil it?
Well, people just but there's certain things in life we can't control anymore, and we need to find your place amongst it all, I think, don't we?
You do. So that's one side. Then the flip side is, well, hang on. If it's done for educational purposes, then it's okay. I mean, I wrote a book on how to learn magic. So yeah, am I being a hypocrite? I think under the umbrella of education and teaching, I'm okay with it. Does it now push the magician to develop and create better, more magical, more baffling effects? Yep, I think it does. I think that it does.
Good.
Which is a good thing, which is a real positive thing. But there's only 7 fundamentals in magic. Something can appear and disappear and teleport, levitate. It's like you're only reworking it to some degree. So and there's only a certain kind of methods. So when all the methods are given up,
yep.
I don't know what happens now. I don't know. We're not there yet, but I don't know. It's interesting.
I think that's like an industry anyway. But everything goes full circle again. I
It
think at
does.
the end of the day, Cosentino, people always want to be entertained. People want to go out and have some fun and be like, my goodness, that was just incredible. That was an incredible illusion, whatever. Well, look, maybe magic exists, maybe it doesn't, who knows? But you know what? I want to be intrigued. And as long as I come and see a magician's show and be intrigued and be like, hang on a minute, how did that happen? I'll be okay. I went to see the Illusionists
Yes.
last time they were here, and the things that went on stage. I mean, I was at the point where I was like, you know what? I know there's some trickery behind all this, but I can't work it out, and that's what's intriguing.
Perfect.
And
Yes.
that's what it's all about. Be entertained. You know, evoke the mind, and everything is okay. Hey, back to you though. Tell me one of your favorite, proudest achievements that you have had during your career so far.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, in 2012, I got my first television special, which was a huge moment for me. One, because there'd never been and still hasn't been an Australian magician with their own prime time TV series. So what that is, that's not an egotistical, arrogant statement. That's first of it's factual. But what it did is it broke down many, many barriers. Whether magicians want to accept that or not, it did. It broke through commercially. I mean, it'd never been done. That's like saying a comedian's never been on Australian TV before. Like at that level, having their own show. I mean, it's really, I don't even think some magicians really understand the scope of what's still being done. And, there were certain other things, and that led to being on, Dancing with the Stars. I'm a celebrity. And, like I know all these producers for these TV shows. And they've told me, I mean, these are the producers who run the TV shows and pitch to the networks that have said to me, they've said it, if you hadn't broken through, maybe we wouldn't even consider magicians as a viable person to be on, I don't know. And I don't want to overstep the line, but this is what I've been told. Like, we wouldn't have even looked at a magician to be on The Bachelor. We wouldn't have looked at a magician to be on what was it called? Like Big Brother. Like they wouldn't have even, because it wasn't in the vocabulary. Now, I'm not taking credit for that, but I've been told this, like commercially by breaking through and having huge rating success, it showed producers and TV execs that, there's an interest in the magician. Because before that, they weren't on TV. So if you want to track it, you'd go, Cosentino came through on AGT. Then he had this TV special that hit 2 million views. Then he had 3 more TV specials, and then Dancing with the Stars, and then straight after that, there's magicians popping up here and there, which was my this is what I wanted. I said on Australia's Got Talent when I was competing, I want the audience to love magic as much as I do, because when it's executed correctly, it's such a beautiful art form. And to some degree, that happened. So I did feel like there was a little bit of a contribution from my end to be able to do that. And then these other magicians have done such a great job as well. So I think that's I really think that's a wonderful thing that's actually happened. So definitely the TV show. I've expanded that answer. If you were to ask my mother, and let me just add to that, because there's moments that I love about this stuff, and I love giving the information.
Yes, please.
I went and saw David Copperfield when I was 13 years old. 13 was the first one. I think I was like 16 years old, and he played in Melbourne at the Regent Theatre. The Regent Theatre is gorgeous, gorgeous theatre. And I sat in the second row next to his parents. I was such a fan. I even knew who his parents were. Yeah, I knew who his parents were. I actually delivered a handwritten note to his parents, which his bodyguards checked and examined. And that letter got given to David Copperfield. And later on, he sent me a note and a signature. I was a kid. And so I hand-delivered the letter to his parents. I mean, they were sitting next to me. Anyway, I'm in the Regent Theatre, and I'm like, wow, David Copperfield. Many, many moons later, linking all this up for you, on Australia's Got Talent, I had to audition at the Regent Theatre. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm on the same stage as my hero, David Copperfield. Wow. Listen to this. A year later, I'm filming my own TV special at the Regent Theatre.
Yeah. You know what?
So that to me is just, again, so rounding it all up, completing that circle, that to me was such a huge moment. So it's not just necessarily about, yes, being the first Australian, blah, 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 blah. It's this completion for me of my story. So it would definitely be that. But very quickly, if you would ask my mother, who's a school principal, she would say, this is what she would say. This is what she would say. No. Forget the TV. I know you wanted the TV specials, blah, 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 blah. She would say, did you ever think as a kid who could not read that you would end up writing best-selling children's books for reluctant readers? And I'm like, nope. So that shows you your past does not equal your future.
Yeah.
He thinks that's the biggest moment.
Cosentino, I think you've just proved in a beautiful story, in a couple of beautiful stories, that magic actually does exist. The magic of the universe. Let's run.
Yes,
All right. You know what? Magic happens.
it does.
Please, you touched on this a little bit ago. My darling friend, my dearest Rhonda Birchmore, was on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here with you. How was that time for you? Because obviously you were in the jungle for a good few months. And then you came out, and literally as you all came out, the COVID period struck. And everyone went into isolation and, all of that craziness again. How was that period for you after being isolated for so long in the jungle and then coming out again and being isolated all over again? And then arts and entertainment was shut down. How was that period for you?
Yeah, it was very, very challenging. And obviously, we had all these things planned. We were going on the TV show, then we'd come out, we'd be on this tour. So I mean, literally, I remember like March 17th. I remember it so clearly. Everything just stopped. Like it wasn't, and it was such a knee-jerk reaction from everybody. It was very scary because it wasn't like, oh, well, let's just see how things go. And maybe that word postpone didn't exist. It was like everything got canceled, like shut down. And I was like, whoa, what do we do now? And there wasn't this Zoom. There wasn't this kind of like, no one knew what was going on. And I'm thinking, okay, like what happens now? There wasn't anything about, oh, there's JobKeeper, none of that kind of stuff was even in discuss. Like it was just shut down, entertainment done.
Yep.
So it was very, very scary. But we pivoted we pivoted very quickly. Like we were like, okay, so what are we going to do now? And so we went online straight away, hence all of this. And then people started picking up, and we started doing shows on Zoom, and magic was working great on Zoom. We started doing keynote speaking on Zoom. I did so many for a lot of big companies too. Like what would happen is everyone was at home, and on a Friday night, kids weren't at school, they were bored. And so these corporate companies would hire me, and I would literally perform and for the entire family that would be sitting in the living room, and I'd be doing it by Zoom, and it'd be this huge, these big companies, and you'd see all these families on the screen. And so, yeah, there was a part of it that in the beginning was really scary. And then, I learned new skills. I learned skills how to edit in Premiere Pro. I learned how to operate all these different cameras and Zooms. And yeah, it was a very, it was uneasy at the beginning, but as we said, like there's things that some good things actually came out of it, and I think that's the best way to look at it.
I think so, 100%. And you know what? We all learned more skills. Even my mum and dad. My mum and dad know how to do Zoom now. So you know what? We all pushed on and developed as human beings. And you know what, Cosentino? Hopefully we all became just a little bit kinder. Fingers crossed.
I think so. I'm hoping that too. I'm hoping, because remember, everyone was very divided about, especially in Melbourne, about vaccines and people not wearing masks or wearing masks. It was a very, very, on tender hook. Everyone was it was an interesting time. So I do hope that we've learned to be more kind to one another. And I think we learned the value of connection, like how as a community, we need to be together.
Yeah.
I think I hope so.
I reckon, you know what, one day down the track, I'm sure, when we look back on all this, I'm sure there's going to be a movie about this kind of period, because it's such a life-changing time for so many people, and indeed the world. But hey, let's move on. I want to know something really fun. Tell me, while you've been on stage, what's the trick that has gone the most hideously wrong?
Oh, wow. Can I give you two? One, what was really embarrassing, and this is the typical standard thing that you probably heard before. I split my pants. And now I know that, and I knew, so now I always have a backup pair on the side ready to go. And because I just never thought about, this was early days. I never thought, oh, what do you do in that scenario? Pant split was super embarrassing, and you can't move on because you can't sit down. You can't like it's done. It's embarrassing, and so that's no good. That's something, but that's not devastating. Before my second TV special, I a couple of things have gone on. My head was in a Perspex box with 18 kitchen knives dangling above my head, and I had to sift through 350 keys to find two to undo the padlocks. And because we were filming, and this is all live at Crown Casino, with like it's a real show, but it's filmed. I wanted to make it dramatic for the TV, so I'm kind of pushing the limits a little bit, so that I'm going to get on TV once, and it's going to be that's it. We're going to film it once, and it's going to be great. But I mistimed that, and I got hit by a knife, and I ended up with 12 stitches in my chin.
Oh
and
my.
yeah, I had to be rushed to emergency. Now, I wasn't going to. Well, it could have been quite severe, going straight through the cheek. But anyway, that wasn't life threatening, but enough to, 12 stitches and end up in the emergency room and having to be stitched up and production stopping when there's, Channel 7 trying to capture all this footage is pretty dramatic and very expensive. And then it happened again where I was doing an underwater tank escape in this kind of Perspex bubble, and I was dropped 10 meters deep. And we were filming it the night before for a practice run. It was going to be done in front of a live audience the next day. And as I went down, I couldn't equalize, and I blew my eardrum. And all this blood's coming out of my ears. And so I came swimming to the top, and you could see the blood gushing out. And this is called an iPhone, like, I don't know, iPhone 9 or 10 or something. And the whole stunt had to be canceled for the next day. And I couldn't get on an airplane, so I couldn't do shows anymore. I canceled. They said, well, you can't get back in the water. My eardrum's ruptured. I had to go back to the network, all bandaged up, and say, oh, the big ending for the TV show that's going to be done live, and, have this audience come in, and all this money we spent by hiring the venue and all the practice and blah, 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 blah. And I'll give you the budget. I'll give you what it was, $100,000 for the ending. Done.
No.
Done.
My God.
No ending. And can you imagine, I can talk about it now because what is it? It's 10 years later. Can you imagine the conversations I must have had with Channel 7? Like, you imagine the anger. And I'm like, but guys, this is real. I don't know what you thought. I don't know what you were thinking. Like, this really, So yeah, that was devastating. That was devastating.
Hey, Cosentino, why do you keep on doing what you're doing? What keeps you motivated?
I think about it's funny. The real answer is I actually don't know. Now, just hold that thought. That kind of sounds like, oh, I'm just doing it because, I don't know anything else. No. I would normally, in the past, I would have given an answer that probably would satisfy the audience in a way. Like, I would think about it, but maybe it was more for them. The truth is, there's something about it. Now, I could say to you, and these are all genuine things, real things. Like, I do love the reaction from the audience, like seeing them in awe and gasping, and just like you can hear it. It's audible at times. You hear them go, "Oh, what? Are you serious?" That's like, yes, that's so beautiful. I could then talk to you about how it makes me feel, especially when I was younger, how it built me up and my confidence. I could talk to you about being creative. I love that aspect of creating something new, and and so all that creativity is a wonderful thing. So their answers. Don't think I haven't thought about it. But the truth is, it's so hard and so difficult and so challenging and so niche within a niche. Entertainment's niche, and then I'm in niche within entertainment. There's something about it that just, it's passion, it's obsession. It's like, it's so ingrained in who I am. I think part of it goes back to being a kid, and it literally, it's just so in my DNA. And it's like such a part of me that it's like breathing for me. I know it's so dramatic and blah, blah, but when you've been doing it since you were 12, and it's everything, I've created, it was my hobby, my craft, my passion, my career. I met my wife through it. My brother works with me. It brought my family together. Like, I'm listing pretty dramatic things here. And it's so much, it's so consuming, and it involves so much that I don't know what it is. It's everything about it. So it's not one. or the other. And I don't even now try and pinpoint it to one thing. It's just, I just really, it's just, I don't know. See how I'm struggling? I'm struggling with words. I just love it that much. And you can't be this passionate this many decades later by faking it.
No. Cosentino, wake up every day and do what you love, whatever it is. I think it's the secret to life. Cosentino, you, like, seriously, I could chat with you all day. I've got a feeling
You're very kind.
way more Zoom sessions.
Yes.
We've got so much to discuss. I didn't even get through everything I wanted to talk about.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Do you know why? Because I give these long-winded answers, but I like to be but do you know what? Because I like to be very authentic, and I like to give, it doesn't have to be such a, I'm just going to give you the real answer.
I love it. Don't even change for anybody. Decennium, the Greatest Hits Tour, is coming to Adelaide and actually all around Australia as well. But coming to Adelaide, 25th of January 2025, I'm going to be there. It's at 7:30 p.m. at Her Majesty's Theatre, which is great. I love Her Majesty's Theatre. Literally, at Cosentino, it's literally 2 streets over that way. So
wow,
I'm going to walk there. I
love that.
Up with you. All right, Cosentino, thank you for being so incredible. I love our conversations, and I can't wait to catch up with you in 2025.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to your audience. I appreciate it. Appreciate you doing this again, and hope to see you all at the show.
Get along, everyone. Bye-bye.